questions, I'm very happy to take with you, or just to talk about things on the second part. Anyone? Oh, actually, I forgot to tell you the one thing I was reminded that guy Jesse Livermore, who I was quoting all the time, and who sounds really wise and knows what he's talking about. Unfortunately, he killed himself because he lost all his money. So he made a lot of money in the crash, and then he lost all his money. And then before he lost all his money, he said that he had rules that he swore never to break, but he did break his rules, and that's why he lost money. So he said, I have no one to blame but myself, but he let his emotions get the better of him. So even people who know everything, apparently, still throw themselves out of windows. Anyway, on that cheery note, if you have any questions. Yeah, sure.
So, I'm curious whether you sort of try to form your own view of fair value, so whether you have your own models to say this is the fair price, in fact, whether you even believe there is a fair price, or whether for you it's more about trying to spot the excesses and the extremes and then trade against them.
Yeah, that's exactly excellent question. I really, if ever I think that the market should be somewhere, as in there's a fair value, for myself I think that's a very wrong point of view, and market should never be anywhere, and it's very difficult to actually, in my opinion, I think any idea of fair value is forming an expectation, and that immediately sets you up for looking for data that will confirm your point of view. Whereas I think markets should be analyzed as they are at that particular moment. So, in that particular moment, what can we actually observe dispassionately without any pre-formed judgment? It's doing X, it's moving at this speed, very factual. Internally, things are doing X, Y, and Z. And usually, 8 times out of 10, under these circumstances, the outcomes are this, this, and this. And then I can position myself that way. So I do not believe in fair value. Go for it.
Thank you for a very interesting speech. And I would wonder, do you see more evidence of the usage of Chinese wisdom, ancient Chinese wisdom, in the trading that occurs in Shanghai or Hong Kong than you do, for example, compared to the trading that occurs in New York or London?
I think, what is it that we learn from history, that we learn nothing from history? No, I do not see any evidence that... No, I don't see any evidence that any of this is used, actually. And certainly not in the new markets of, say, the Far East or Eastern Europe. In my experience, they are a lot more emotional. So the swings are much more accentuated, and they go further in the discussion around them. So in local press. In fact, learning Chinese is one of the reasons why it helps me practically, is that when I do trade Far Eastern markets, I scan the headlines, and they use a lot of excessive language. So if everything is going up, it's just soaring and flying, and if it's going down, it's just crashing. It's awful. And they do tend to be a lot more under the control of their passions, and therefore they're much easier to trade against, but they're very volatile, so it doesn't suit me. Yeah, I find that the more mature markets of the West are a lot more subdued and less volatile, and I think that's because they have a lot more history, and they can see it has all happened before, and there are no new eras. Yeah.
You said that just a little bit killed himself with a lot of money. Is there any ancient wisdom that would help prevent that?
Yes, I think so. I think Confucius did say, if you're sad, get sad, but don't basically get depressed. And if you're happy, don't get excessively so. I think that there is definitely ancient wisdom that says,
pause and decide.
yeah, extremes are rarely the guide. When everything around you seems so awful, it probably isn't that bad.
Exactly.
On the contrary, when everything seems absolutely amazing, it probably isn't that good either. So there definitely is, yeah. And it definitely helps a lot for me when I think that I'm a total loser. I think, well, probably that's not the case. Yes, please.
Well, actually, this morning on Radio 4, we talked about the traders. Many of them are professional gamblers,
Right.
in a sense. I just wonder whether it's the job that has turned them to that, or because of their personality that it attracts people to do the job because they want to gamble and then it's speculation.
I think definitely both, and I think there is a lot of, in my opinion, and mainstream media says that traders are betting on certain outcomes, and they use gambling language. And certainly a lot of them do gamble because they are in it for the emotional thrill. They want to feel good. They want that emotional intensity. And the market will give you what you want, I suppose, much like with life. If you want ups and downs, it will definitely give you ups and downs. And it also is it's a very cruel master. It will reward and punish all the time, and these kinds of with my background in neuroscience, I know that these kinds of environments attract addicts when you can never predict. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's sour, sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's sour. It really attracts very addictive personalities, but they tend not to last long. So traders who go for intensity, oh, it's great, oh, it's awful. There is an expression, there are old traders and there are bold traders, but there are no bold, old traders. Because if they're bold and they go guns blazing, they tend not to last very long. Yeah. Generally, if you speak to a lot of, certainly my mentors who have been doing this for maybe 40, 50 years, they're very, very grey. They're not. If you ask them something, they think, well, this or that. You would never think that they're traders. You think traders are like warriors and everything is amazing, but no, they're really very subdued individuals. So, yes.
Yeah, so you said that you don't do any fundamental analysis. So how do you develop your ideas of where the market is going? Because you must have a view if you have to have a position. Are you just a chartist or a technical analyst? And the second question related to that, once you've taken a position, obviously you want it to be right, so you do have desire. How do you keep the desire in check?
I don't a lot of the time, and then I lose money. I do, but I don't lose money all the time. That's the point. First, I do a lot of fundamental analysis. I do a lot of fundamental and cyclical analysis, and so its primary thrust is acknowledging that everything that has happened before will happen again. So I analyze fundamental data through this is getting too specific. Through cycles. So yes, I look at repeated economic patterns. So right now I'm thinking that we will, again, it's too specific. I do fundamental analysis. For keeping my desire in check, when I take a position and I want it to be right, yes, I do. I think when I start hoping, again, in the markets, they do say that only make plans for when things go wrong, because when things go right, you don't need to do anything, which is very true. If you have a winning position, you don't actually need to do that much. It looks after itself. You just need to take it off at the right time. My checkpoints are the clicking, as I said, and it happens to me quite often. If something is going, if I have a position goes against me, and I start hoping that it will get better, and I start looking for more supporting evidence, and I click again, and I click here, and I look. I notice that as my emotional intensity gets up, that's the time, that's the clue to take off the position and walk away. Also, when I do take a position and I no longer understand, I believe, the market, then I take it off and I walk away. And also when I get very happy, I keep a diary every day, pretty much every hour when I have a position. So I write down actually what I'm feeling. So, I'm really excited, this is amazing, and it's like 1903, and then 1915, I take the position off. When I get really, this is really great, this is fantastic, I can't stop looking at my account about all the figures that are there. That for me means that I have to take the position off and walk away. So as soon as I get a lot of desire and it's working in my favor, I take the position off. If it's working against me and I start hoping, again, I just take a loss and walk away. I think diary keeping really helps, just writing down your feelings and then seeing, does this sound like a gambler or like a trader, basically? It sounds like a gambler, walk away. It sounds like a trader, you stay there. Yeah. Any more?
Just wondering, have you got any time that your opinion is against the majority of the markets, and you do something very different to the others, and how do you handle that kind of emotion, and how you find out like you should stick to what you think?
Well, that's very much about the courage to be a pig, isn't it? And to know what you know. Yes, I do that a lot of the time, and it does happen more often than not that I would be against the prevailing opinion. I think it's quite difficult one of the reasons why these big crashes happen and that markets move in these massive waves and nothing seems to stop them and they all seem to be collapsing is because traders work in large packs, so they work in big banks where peer pressure is massive. It's very difficult to go against the flow, against your bosses, against your friends and everyone else. And so mistakes tend to replicate. So everyone makes the same bet because they all think, if you're not making the same bet, then something's wrong with you. So goes the same. And when something goes wrong, everyone's position goes wrong. And it happens every time, and we don't seem to learn from it. So again, it's diary keeping. I write down all my views. It's now been over 10 years, and I look back every time when I feel really hopeless, and I think, well, I can't be this wrong. Everyone says something different. I look back. Has this happened before? Yes, it has happened before. Am I usually right? Yes. And then you have to stick to what you know. But then you have to be aware of what you know, so you write it down.
I'm interested in your personal development. So at the moment, you've brought it together and you've got a nice deck here. When you look back at where you started, how much do you think you naturally fell into this, or do you think that you very purposefully tried to seek out better ways of trading? Almost like luck-based. Perhaps now you feel less luck in your trading. Do you feel like there's a lot of luck at the beginning?
Yes, definitely. Oh God! Yes, in the beginning there was a lot of luck, and I think you need that, of course, in this beautiful game. Now it's a lot more boring. Now it's been a few years when and it's a good thing actually, because it's very difficult. It's like falling in love for the first time. So you fall in love and it's amazing. You found the right person. Everything is great. It's awesome. Every morning, you want to be with it. But then after a few, maybe 6 months or a year, it falls into this stable, loving partnership and actually that's a better thing because it will last longer. And the other thing is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. When I was, all this emotional intensity is very exhausting. Yes, it's very rewarding in many ways, but it cannot be sustained. And yes, in the beginning there was a lot of luck. I think there was just looking at what I was writing back then. There was a lot more despair and elation, so very extreme emotion. And also, I was just taking blind risks, and yes, it worked good for me on balance. So the types of things that I was doing back then, about maybe 6 years ago, I would never do now, absolutely never. So yes, there was a big element of luck, and now I hope I'm more aware of that, so I won't make the same mistakes. Yes, yeah. Any more? Yes?
It sounds to me that from the way you describe it, the market is a very organic organism rather than a cold number sort of thing, because it's made by people's psyche, I guess. So in your own work, how much is from the guts, how much is instinct, and how much is in your head?
I think it's very much like a relationship, like falling in love. Also, I think it's all from the gut. first, and again they say in trading, you know, you start here, and then if you survive the first 2 years, so it comes up to here, and then you kind of apply analysis and everything else, and then gradually it comes down again back to here. So it's your belly that feels everything, yes. For me, certainly, if I wake up in the morning and I don't want to eat, that means I'm doing something wrong in the market. If you have to take these clues, you know, your body is a lot more aware, I believe, of my emotions. That means I'm too stressed, my risks are too high, you know, something is wrong. If I have food in front of me and I'm more interested in looking at the market than eating it again for lunch, that's possibly not the right thing. And you really have to, and again, something I always write in my diary, you know, didn't want to eat this morning, can't do this, do that. Because it can take over, and when it takes over, I invariably make mistakes. I think it is very organic. And there is this whole new field of behavioral finance that is developing, and I think a couple of years ago, the Nobel Prize for Economics was awarded to behavioral finance guys. So it's all about trying to incorporate human psychology into market behavior, because really I don't think it's a cold sort of, I'm firm and unbending. It is constantly under the influence of our passions. And the only thing, in my opinion, to get ahead in that game is to be more aware of what you are feeling in relation to it. Yeah. Yes?
Do you trade it when you're ill?
No.
So definitely any illness you'll be stopped.
Well, actually, I do trade when I know that I lose a lot of money, and I think that serves you right. So, personal difficulties, relationship difficulties, ill, all of these things, is not the time to be trading. No. No, absolutely not. But that's exactly the time when you want to be trading, usually. In fact, whenever you want to do something in the market, is usually the wrong thing to be doing. So, yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Yeah.
Part of what you're saying is about taking the extremes of emotion out of it, looking at history, being very objective. Now, the logical extreme of that would be a computer. So I'm interested in whether you think you could be replaced by an algorithm, or if not, what it is, this kind of awareness you bring to your emotions, or what it is which couldn't be replaced by an algorithm.
I really tried designing lots of systems to kind of announce, I tried to giving grades. I think it's very difficult to replace traders with algorithms, because traders have to be aware of what they're feeling. And obviously a computer isn't feeling anything. So when I have elation, that's a clue for me to take off the position. But the algorithm will not feel that. Yes, it will be making lots of money, but how will it know when to take it off the table? But that's a very important skill as well, to take your profit. It's very important, because so many times one makes a lot of money and then it disappears because the market reverses. When do you take things off? Or when everything is collapsing. For example, people around you are really, there's blood on the streets, as famous Baron Rothschild said, buy when there's blood on the streets, even if that blood is your own. Someone needs to be aware, actually, everyone is really panicking. Am I panicking? Well, I'm a bit scared. I should be scared, this is a good thing. But I'm not that panicked, and therefore I should be acting. I'm not sure how an algorithm can do that.
So you see what your emotions are telling you to do, and then do the opposite.
I try to do that, yes. Yeah. I just try to make, not necessarily the opposite, I just try to make, be more, write them down, and then match. Does it match? Quite often emotion does not match what actually is going on, because a lot of the time nothing much is going on. But I make it out to be something really big, Yeah. Any more? Yes?
How do you manage your clients' expectations when, if it goes against what you believe?
If the markets go against what I believe.
No, if like your clients are always wanting to make more money, greedy, and then you have a different point of view.
Right.
How do you manage the expectations?
Well, you find clients and colleagues who share your point of view. I think that's very important. And I started out working at a bank, and I was on the trading desk, and my boss would come on at the end of every day, and he would slap you around the back and say, "Aiden, how much money have you made for me today?" And that was every day. A lot of traders share that in banks. There is this relentless, I wouldn't call it pressure, but every single day you're asked how much money you made today, what's your P&L, where is it? You have league tables, rankings, everyone can see it. Like make, trade, produce more money, and then we have these massive blow-ups, of course, because it just can't be done. And then I was working at a hedge fund where my boss he always had to be in it, in the market. They make a trade, they always have an opinion. I simply say that I don't have an opinion, I'm sorry. I don't have an opinion. Sometimes I don't have any positions because I don't have an opinion, and that's very important. Because Jesse Livermore, him killing himself notwithstanding, he said there is an ordinary fool who makes repeated mistakes, and then there is a Wall Street fool who thinks that he has to trade every single day. You don't. And you just tell your clients that, look, I made money for you last time, and now I'm not going to do anything for a month. Go away. Yeah. Yes?
Yes, I'm starting a little bit to picture your trading style, because a lot of things you said suggest that you're more like a day trader, but you were talking about cyclical analysis, which obviously takes a long time, the frames to play out, quarters, years. So could you describe a little bit more concretely, I don't know, one trading idea that worked, and how you got it, how you put it on, what your emotions were, and generally what your style is?
Sure. So we were in March of this year. The European Central Bank has announced their long-term refinancing operation at the end of 2011. They released €1 trillion into the European financial system. The world was saved yet again. Nothing matters. Peace doesn't matter. And risk assets, what we call risk assets, so financial markets, they went up. They were going up and up and up and up. And the cyclical analysis that I do suggested to me that economic performance this year would be very flat. So it wouldn't be drastically bad, or it wouldn't be drastically good. And then, as the markets kept advancing because of the central bank actions, a lot of the expectation was built in that there will be positive surprises. So, we look at, for example, the Citigroup Economic Surprises Index, and this peak sort of forms as more and more people are expecting real economic numbers to come out with great growth, great employment numbers, great retail spending, great hours worked, etc., etc. So my long-term analysis says to me that ain't gonna happen. Then I look at markets which are going higher and higher and higher. Then I look at sentiment. So how do people feel about things? There are lots of ways to measure that. So people are getting more and more bullish, they're more and more buying things. And then I begin to use technical analysis about when I actually enter a position. So then I formulate a view that in the next probably month we're going to turn around. Because this is becoming too stretched. Expectations for economic data are very high. My analysis says that it will be low. And the market gets ripe. And then it's like a bit like hunting, then you kind of start hunting, and that your time frame comes down to probably hours. That's when I start waking up at 6:30 in the morning, going to bed, And then you think, now is the right time, you shoot. And then I was holding this trade, I was holding shorts in European banks and general European indices up until late May. So that was March, April, most of May, it was about 10 weeks. That would be my style. And then everyone gets really, really sad, nothing worked, markets are falling, oh no, it's all a disaster, everything is a disaster. Economic surprises, because they were disappointing people's expectations, they are now this low. We're going to get awful numbers, of course they don't ever come out as bad as everyone is expecting, and so this comes up again. So it's a scale of sort of moving time frames. First you build a view of roughly when things will happen, and then you start looking at is the data that's coming out confirming your opinion or not? and then I have a few systems, sort of as they all overlap, that's when you start. That's when I become a day trader, when I enter into a position and then I come out of it. Sorry if that was too specific. Anyone else? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yes?
Are you still a trader now? I missed the beginning of the talk.
Yes, yes. I am.
So, what's your position now? What's your view now on the world? And can you explain the reasoning of why you're not getting too excited or too depressed about it?
What is my point of view now for the next? I think in the next couple of months we are going to start getting quite a bit disappointed with the data that we're seeing. And next year I think we'll go into a fairly major recession. But again, we'll see how the data comes out in the United States and here. And I think for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, China is going to really, really slow down to about 3 or 4% growth. That's going to be a very big surprise to a lot of people. Possibly 2, 3, 4%, not more than that. And that will persist for a very long time, probably for 8 to 15 years. Very slow growth in the Far East. And towards the end of next year, we're going to start to recover and gradually build ourselves back together. But no, I'm not that depressed about it. It'll be okay. Everything will be okay. I have my business cards here. If anyone wants to write to me or ask me more questions or has some views, I would very much like to discuss. So if you want them, come and get them here. If you have any more questions, by the way, yes, I'm still very open. I don't know what time, Mr. Su, what time do we have to stop? Hayoshi-san. So yeah, we still have time. If you have any more questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Yes, go ahead.
How does your analysis say that China will grow only 2 to 4%? You realize that that's completely outside of...
Yes, that is completely outside of consensus. Why do I think that? So it's a long answer. Well, I think China now is quite an extreme case, I think, economically. I think they would do very well to read their lessons. And they must learn that what goes up must come down. I think it's very big. And in fact, it's very necessary for them to do that. Obviously, a very large part of their GDP is investment-led into building bridges, factories, and cities and flats, and more factories and bridges, paving roads and all that, which is very important. But a lot of what they have built so far is not really generating much income because there's not much demand for what they have built. That has to, as they keep on, so there's a lot of that. Consumption share, it's a very classic story. Consumption share in China is quite low. And very simply put, for consumption to grow as a share of GDP, consumption has to grow faster than GDP, by definition. Consumption in China does not grow very fast. And consumption function is quite stable, as we know, through most lifetimes. Maximum it will be growing at is 6%, possibly, maybe 6%, let's say. If consumption grows at 6% and it will become a greater share of GDP, GDP by definition has to grow less than 6%. For it to meaningfully overtake increases the share of GDP, it has to probably, that's a very simple equation. GDP has to grow at less than maybe 5%. Then consumption can realistically become a larger share of the pie. Why do I think that will start happening next year or from next year? There are lots of reasons that I study and the way their incomes are, the producers are, where their main markets are, and all of these things. But principally, my main answer is the Chinese need to rebalance. They are starting to rebalance. The only way for them to rebalance is for their consumption to grow faster than GDP. Consumption, it's almost impossible to get consumption to grow faster than 7%. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, although I think mean, the statistics show that it's, retail sales are up double digits. If you look at sales of luxury cars like Audi, they're up 30% from last year.
Yeah, I think that's a very also quite an important point that China is not really driven by the top end. You know, growth in the main cities, in tier 1 cities, is stalling, and its main engine is the sort of second tier cities where people can't buy really luxury cars and all these things. So demand for extremely expensive items is growing very fast, and that's another reason why I think China is going to not do very well is because China's growth story is a massive credit-fueled boom, which has been subsidized by very, very low real rates available to consumers. And again, much like history tells us, there has not been a single credit-fueled boom in history that hasn't spectacularly gone bust. Maybe this time will be different and China will prove us all wrong, but looking at their rate of growth, rate of credit growth and rate of credit expansion, it is conforming exactly to every single credit fuel bubble that has happened before in history. And I really do think that it will conform to everything that happened before. Unfortunately, but you know, that's just numbers.
How reliable are these data from China?
I don't think that's particularly relevant, really. I mean, we just look at outcomes, and we look at pricing, and we look at prices of instruments. They will tell us.
Yeah, but as you've shown, the Shanghai index is down from 6,000 to 2,000.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So.
hasn't it already happened?
Sorry?
Hasn't it already happened?
It has. It can always go lower. It can go much lower. How low can it go? It can go. So right now it's at 2030, and in 2005 it was at 1,000. You know, that's only 7 years ago. Can very easily fall back to 1,000, and that's a loss of about 55%. That's a significant bear market. So I think it can go much lower. I think generally everything can go much lower. You know, we always think, oh, it can't go any lower, but it does. Yeah.
You realize that this thesis is completely against what the Federal Reserve, the ECB, and the Asian central banks are also doing. So
Yes.
they're keeping up the prices.
Yes.
So you're fighting the tape.
I'm not fighting the tape because I don't have short positions right now. So as I said, I think it's important to have a view, but it's exactly that point. You know, don't fight the Fed. You just have to look at the market. Right now, it's not turning. When it starts turning, that's when I'll go short. But I mustn't let an opinion of the Fed knows what it's doing bias my thinking. If the market tells me that it's going to turn, I must trust the market. Because, you know, Ben Bernanke famously said that subprime credit will be contained, subprime prices will be contained. That was wrong. Alan Greenspan said that we've entered a new era of American productivity just before the dot-com bubble burst. He was wrong. Irving Fisher, 1929, said we have reached a permanently high plateau of prices. He was wrong. And all of these people are wrong very often. They are. What was it? Bernanke said that there is no systemically important US financial institution that is at any risk whatsoever 3 weeks before Lehman Brothers collapsed. You know, they're just people. Anyone else? Yes?
Which other Chinese classics are you studying, and do you have a favorite verse or favorite area?
My favorite is Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching. And yes, I probably have been unduly influenced by Mr. Su thing. And my favorite verse is in one of these things, and that is the opening about desire. Yes, that without it, you see what's there, and with it, you see what you want to see. That's something I use every day with my mind. All right, guys. We should probably wrap up. Again, if you want to talk to me more, please wrap up.
Okay, thank you for all of you coming. And if you would like to know more about Chinese classics and there is no gamble, on Friday we run charitable classes. It's
for free. You don't need to speculate. You can come here to find out some interesting Chinese characters and also Chinese history and Chinese culture. So thank you again, and thank you, Aidan, and hope you all enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.